Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I want to talk about the news that's come out most recently about Ozark. That Ozark has been renewed for a fourth and final season. I guess for this video, I might make this a thoughts and theories and just kind of share some thoughts and theories about, what we could expect going into the final season. I'm looking into it a little bit. One of the interesting things about this is the fact is Ozark is actually, the final season is actually going to be a little bit longer, which once again, I always talk about how final seasons usually end up being shorter. This is actually going to be like 4 episodes longer. Typically every season's been 10 episodes, but this final season is going to be 14 from what I was reading. I mean, obviously that might change in the future, but for now, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, obviously a lot of stuff went down in season 3, so the question then becomes like, well, where do we go from here? All right, one of the biggest things is obviously like, well, Navarro killed Helen, and I was even seeing something that was bringing up the question of, well, why did he kill Helen? That kind of got me thinking about it. Like, I guess it's because Helen was making moves on her own, and Navarro was like, no, you do what I tell you to do. He didn't, because to be fair, he's become infatuated with Marty and Wendy. Like, they're kind of like his 2 favorite people, because it's like, I think for him they're entertaining, but also just like what they've been able to do and accomplish. He's like very proud of them. So it's like for Helen to try and do anything behind his back, get rid of the 2 people that he's taken a real shining to. I mean, to be fair, that shine and luster can easily fade away, because we saw the way he kind of blew up at Wendy at moments throughout season 3. So it's like it can easily fade away. But for now, I think it was just his way of being like, oh, I chose them over you. And that also shows you he's going to kill someone like Helen, who's been his faithful confidant. Obviously, she went through torture just to be like, yes, I haven't said jack squat to anybody about, well, now that I'm actually thinking about it, it might be because of that. It might be because her daughter knows, and her daughter might have went running off her mouth about it. So now I'm thinking about in retrospect, that might actually be, I mean, hell, for all we know, it might be a combination of everything. I mean, to be fair, the birds are in a very unique position because their children already know what they did. Obviously, like Helen's kid was kind of caught up in the lies that Helen had told. So there's all of that. And the big thing going next season is like, let's not forget, like, Navarro's supposed to have been in a corner, like, because obviously the whole thing was about backing his competition potentially and getting someone else to potentially wipe him out. Like, obviously we saw bits and pieces of that. Obviously that was not completely resolved last season. Obviously Navarro made his moves with those horses that he bought last season. Like, obviously he made little moves here and there, but I feel like next season it's going to be like the heavy hitting, like there's definitely going to be probably like a lot of death and carnage next season. But one thing I'm also curious at the end of the day, and Helen's death might be foreshadowing this, are the birds going to come out of this alive? Because I could easily see this being a situation where Wendy or Marty doesn't make it out of this alive. Maybe they do. I don't know. Who knows if they come out of this being like, oh, we're going to be criminal people? I have no idea. It's going to be interesting to see, where things kind of go on that front. But I just get that inkling, because this is that type of show where it's like, you can kill off your main protagonist. Like, it's just going to, this doesn't seem like the type of show that, man, you're going to have a happy ending. Especially because, like, the birds have always been skating by the skin of their teeth. Like, you've gotten lucky. Things have kind of worked out for you in your favor and stuff like that. Yes, you've been smart about things, but at the same time, it's just like, things just kind of happen to fall into place. At the same time, things tend to fall out of place for them a lot of times. So the question is their luck going to run out? And that's the biggest question going forward. Then you also can't forget about the whole Maya angle, because obviously the whole thing about Marty flipping her, that was kind of the whole thing in itself. Because obviously Maya had always kind of like, despite everything, I think she actually kind of feels for Marty, and that's why she's trying to help him so much. Obviously Trevor's the one that's kind of like, no, you killed Petty, F you, I'm going to take you down. So we saw a little bit of Trevor last season, but not too much, so where things kind of go on that front. There's also the whole KC mob situation. It's like they've been kind of, Frank and his kid kind of have to, I think the last time we saw was like, Darlene when she got, Frank Jr. I mean, obviously he's not dead, but that was her getting him back for Ruth, which I think that was like the biggest shift last season too, because like Ruth was kind of like very ride or die with the birds to a certain extent, but to be fair, after everything like Frank did to her and they're not doing, like, granted, Marty stepped up and threatened Frank in his own way, but it wasn't enough, because it's like, obviously Ruth wanted him dead, and Darlene ended up being the one to kind of give her justice. So now it also puts her and Wyatt on the same side too. So it's like, because obviously Ruth was kind of the up and comer, so for her to be working with Darlene, she knows basically what to do because she's learned so much from Marty, so she knows how to use that against him. Because it's so interesting because Darlene was so much in the background, like she was doing her own thing, taking care of, you know, Mason's baby and everything, but she was still just kind of in the background. She wasn't like the forefront like she was the first 2 seasons, like because her and her hubby were like the forefront of the first 2 seasons, and now she kind of took a step back last season. I mean, you know, season 3. I feel like season 4 she's gonna like definitely be more in the front, be proper competition for everything that's going down, you know. So I'm curious to kind of see how things kind of shake up in that regard, especially with the birds having to go up against because I don't think, once again, Ruth still doesn't know that Wendy's the one that put a hit out on her dad, so there's that whole, you know, complicated, you know, situation as well. Then there's also the situations with the kids, like obviously last season set up some stuff for Jonah. Obviously, you know, the whole thing with Ben's situation, you know, it's like, especially because like there was like, I think Jonah, after having lost Buddy last season, I think Ben kind of became like that new friend for him, like kind of filled that hole, that emptiness in him. And so that ended up, you know, now it's like, well, Helen ended up telling him last season, like, oh yeah, your parents were behind your uncle getting killed and everything. So it's like, Jonah's already always seemed a little like different, like the show's always kind of pointed that out, but even more so just like now he knows the truth. Is he going to tell Charlotte? How's Charlotte going to react to it? Becomes like the big question. Like I'm curious, like this might be the season that Jonah kind of steps up and just really like we might kind of see a different side of him too, like in the sense that maybe he kind of steps up and becomes a little bit more like, you know, becomes their Ruth in a certain extent, like, you know, or maybe he just says F his family, he wants to have nothing to do with them, because it's just like, yeah, you did the criminal stuff, you did fine, but the fact is you're willing to kill family. It's like, yes, Ben was a liability and everything, but that's still, you killed your own brother, because I'm sure in his own mind it's like, if we became an issue, would you kill us too? Which would be like, no, you're our kids, we'd never do that. It's like, well, that was family, you killed Ben, you know, so that might be something circulating through his mind as well. I'm really curious, because I'm so curious to see what they do with Jonah, because I feel like they've been slowly amping him up to something. I'm just not curious. I'm not sure where that's going to end up with his story, you know? I mean, who knows? For all we know, he might be the thing that is the bird's undoing in the grand scheme of things. Not unless we end up finding out a situation where he ends up being the one going to the cops trying to take down his parents as revenge for them killing Ben. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just randomly throwing that out there. All this is talk about like familiar faces returning next season and for the final season, but I'm sure we'll get some new faces as well. Like obviously, like I said, the head of like the other cartel that Navarro's at war with, maybe them. Hell, like, well, I've said all this about the birds and stuff like that, but will Navarro survive next season? I assume so, but it's going to be a competition of probably trying to get yourself out of this situation, because Navarro seems like he's on the losing end, but then maybe he makes a counter strike, and so many different possibilities, you know. Like I said, this is just all this kind of running through my head about, you know, what could potentially go down in a, you know, season, you know, 4th and final season. You know something also that I was thinking about too? This might be actually the first season that Wendy and Marty might be going into it on the same wavelength, just because they've kind of been at odds at the ends of different seasons. Season 1 is, at the end of season 1, they weren't necessarily 100% at the same page at the beginning of season 2. Same thing at the end of season 2 and going into season 3, they weren't necessarily on the same page. They were actually, obviously, last season they were at odds, but now I think, you know, they've bridged a lot of that. I'm also curious, like, because obviously Wendy really stepped up. This is dark side Wendy to the max. Season 3 was her season to really step up, especially as close as she got to Navarro. So I'm wondering, are we going to see any more of that? Or has these recent situations, especially everything with Ben, kind of pulled that back? And what about Marty too? Because Marty, we got a little insight to him. Like, was it when his mom was dying in the hospital or whatever? He was playing that game, and obviously that kind of gave you a look into why Marty is the way he is, why he's kind of all about winning, where that spark kind of came from. Like, obviously as he's gotten older, it's gotten bigger, but for him, it's all about winning. You know, he wants to kind of, because it was the episode specific. I want to say it was episode 5. It's called Boss Fight. Like, that episode was just so interesting in that regard, where it's just like Marty is so, you know, it just shows you why Marty does what he does. So he's all about winning. So this next season might be that. Like, Marty, like, he fell back a little bit on that, but like maybe next season he hits it full throttle, especially after the Helen thing. It's like, oh, we need to find a way out of this, because that could easily just be us, you know, like I said, that might be a disagreement between him and Wendy, or maybe they'd be on the same page. But I think Marty's going to want to be the one that goes, because even that was the whole thing for Navarro. It's like, what do you want? Because Navarro saw it in Marty. It's like, no, what you want to do is you want to win. Hell, that might even be what ends up happening. Navarro might be like, all right, because you want to win so much, I want you to help me win, because that's what's most important to me. So it could be a benefit or detriment to Marty next season, the whole like that need to win to come out on top. Obviously, like I said, these are just my thoughts. I love to get to know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you expect to see in the final season? What are some things you'd want to see in the final season? Let me know. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.